Israeli leaders discuss transitioning to Phase C of the war in Gaza and its effects across the Middle East.
The International Criminal Court issued warrants for top Russian officials over attacks on Ukrainian civilian targets. The court accused former Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of Staff General Valery Gerasimov of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Judges believe there are reasonable grounds for the belief that the two men are responsible for missile strikes carried out by the Russian armed forces against the Ukrainian electric infrastructure. Despite the news that warrants have been issued, the likelihood of either suspect being immediately detained is improbable. Russia is not a member of the ICC, does not recognize its jurisdiction, and has refused to hand over suspects in the past. Russian President Vladimir Putin was accused by the ICC last year of abducting children from Ukraine, along with Russian official Maria Lvova-Belova.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has been discussing the transition to Phase C of the war in Gaza with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his commitments to bringing back all the hostages held in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Italy's Defense Minister Guido Crosetto renewed his calls to Netanyahu to stop the 8-month-long war.
Io auspico che Netanyahu capisca quello che la comunità internazionale sta cercando di dire a Israele per il bene stesso di Israele da mesi, perché io penso che gli Stati Uniti e l'Italia quando parlano a Netanyahu chiedono di fermarsi, lo facciano pensando al bene futuro di Israele e spero che lo capisca anche lui.
Meanwhile, EU High Representative Josep Borrell warned that war between Israel and Hezbollah could cause serious crisis and said it is now clear that there is no ceasefire at all.
Israel's Supreme Court has ruled that ultra-orthodox men must be drafted for military service. This landmark decision ends decades of broad exemptions, aligning ultra-Orthodox enlistment with the rest of the population. The ruling could destabilize Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition, as ultra-Orthodox parties, key allies, oppose the change. This decision comes as Israel continues its conflict in Gaza. The move is expected to face significant political and social challenges.
After a decade-long legal saga spanning arrest warrants, health episodes and international politics, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is expected to walk free in exchange for a guilty plea. Stella Assange said she is optimistic the 12-year ordeal for her husband will soon be over.
This period of our lives, I'm confident now, has come to an end. And I think that by this time next week, Julian will be free.
In exchange for his freedom, Assange is expected to plead guilty to one US Espionage Act charge of conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified national defense information. Assange, a 58-year-old editor and activist, founded the website WikiLeaks in 2006 and began publishing sensitive and classified documents. The award-winning publication gained prominence 4 years later after it published 500,000 leaked files related to the US wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2019, Washington indicted Assange on 18 charges over WikiLeaks' publication of classified documents. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese cautiously welcomed the news of Assange's deal for freedom from National Parliament.
The government is certainly aware that Australian citizen Mr Julian Assange has legal proceedings scheduled in the United States. While this is a welcome development, we recognise that these proceedings are crucial and they're delicate. There is nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration and we want him brought home to Australia.
For years, press freedom activists and Australian politicians have lobbied for Assange's release. They are now celebrating the news of the plea deal. Assange is expected to appear in a US court on Wednesday and return to Australia if a judge accepts the agreement.
With less than a week to go before the first round of a surprise snap election, the left-wing Popular Front Alliance in France is relying on new volunteers to woo voters. Many of the newly enrolled volunteers have very little experience, yet they are heading outside of Paris to help where candidates are battling to not fall too far behind the far-right National Rally Party.
On a plein de nouvelles et nouveaux qui nous arrivent tous les jours. Et du coup, au dernier porte-à-porte, j'étais la seule un peu ancienne, donc j'avais que des nouvelles et de nouveaux en face de moi. Et donc d'habitude, on fait des binômes anciens-nouveaux pour pouvoir familiariser et former. Et donc là, on a fait une formation express et on les a envoyés. Et de toute façon, voilà, c'est comme ça qu'on apprend aussi. Et ça s'est très très bien passé pour tout le monde.
Many young people are worried about the dangers of having the National Front as their government.
Ça m'inquiète pour l'avenir, pour moi, mon travail, parce que moi, du coup, je travaille au social. Et du coup, déjà qu'on a peu de moyens, si on a encore moins de moyens, je ne sais pas comment il va être mon métier.
During the European elections, more than a third of the far-right party's voters were aged between 25 and 34, yet more than 1 in 2 voters aged 18 to 24 abstained from voting altogether. Candidates can all but hope that the turnout for the snap elections will be higher.
Antisemitism is on the rise in Germany, according to the Federal Association of Research and Information Centres on Antisemitism. The group has tracked an increase of more than 80% in incidents last year, with well over half happening after the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel. Just under 5,000 anti-Semitic incidents were recorded in 2023, up from just under 3,000 in 2022. The incidents range from anti-Jewish comments to physical assaults and include a mid-October attack on a synagogue in Berlin. Dr. Felix Klein, Federal Government Commissioner for Jewish Life in Germany and the fight against anti-Semitism, has called for more stringent measures to combat Jewish hate.
Damit den Strafverfolgungsbehörden effektive Mittel zur umfassenden Bekämpfung judenfeindlicher Hetze und Gewalt zur Verfügung stehen, fordere ich Ergänzungen im Strafgesetzbuch. So muss der Aufruf zur Vernichtung anderer Staaten unter Strafe gestellt werden.
Despite these incidents, a senior Jewish German official said the rise has not yet resulted in an emigration of Jews from Germany.
The Polish army has launched a new recruitment drive to try to protect their homeland against potential Russian aggression. New starters are being put through rigorous military training as the army seeks to grow its 198,000 members. According to a spokesperson from the Polish Defence Ministry, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 sparked an impulse among Poles to want to defend their country.
Nie zawsze chciałem zostać żołnierzem, jednakże obecne wydarzenia na świecie, wszelkie konflikty, ale przede wszystkim sytuacje dookoła naszej ojczyzny w pobliżu zmotywowały mnie do zmiany moich decyzji.
Holidays with the Army is a 28-day program that offers basic training to those over the age of 18.
Malaga is joining other cities in Spain by putting the brakes on the spread of tourist accommodation. Licenses to properties with a separate entrance are to be limited by the city council. Barcelona and Valencia have also made similar restrictive measures.
La típica gentrificación, ¿vale? Que ya da igual muchas veces que parece que estamos en Berlín, que en Barcelona o que en Nueva York, porque son como ciudades del corta y pega. Y directamente la subida de los precios, fondos buitres que están detrás de todo esto.
As residents are finding it hard to pay rent.
No se puede con un sueldo medio bueno pagar un alquiler aquí en Málaga y vivir es misión imposible.
The Andalusian city has experienced a huge increase in tourist housing in recent years. from just 846 in 2016 to over 12,000 in 2024.
Workers in Bucharest are cutting their hours short as temperatures are registering 40 degrees in the shade. Inside restaurant kitchens, the temperatures were significantly higher. Grillers and roasters are heating the atmosphere to more than 50 degrees Celsius.
Probabil 50. N-am măsurat niciodată. Zic că e ok. Suntem mai mulți, facem curentul, depășim perioada de căldură.
Employers have had to take special measures for their workers, such as reducing the working hours or forcing employees to take longer breaks. Over the last 24 hours, 1,316 people have called the ambulance for medical support due to heat-related stress.
Din fericire, numărul de ambulanțe care nu au aer condiționat este mic și acelea nu prea sunt folosite în aceste zile decât în situații extraordinare.
A Chinese lunar probe has returned to Earth with the world's first rock and soil from the little-known far side of the moon. The Chang'e 6 probe landed in the Inner Mongolian region in northern China on Tuesday. Chinese scientists expect the return samples to include 2.5 million-year-old volcanic rock, among other materials. They hope their discoveries will answer questions about geographic differences on the moon's two sides.